New day, new laptop to repair, and this time we have an Inspiron 165625 laptop. Let's see what's wrong with it. The system will not turn on, hangs at 2.4 amps. Let's see what we get. All right, this one uses a smaller tip Dell charger. Let's plug it in, see if we get any amps drawn. So we're looking for, if you look right here, okay, we're getting 0.7, 0.6, 0.6, 0.7, 1.8, 2.08. We're just watching to see if it moves around. It's just hanging at 2.08. So the normal process for a startup of a laptop, it should jump up to like 1.5 amps, then jump down to 0.4, then jump up, jump down, jump up. And even when it's running, it should not sit there at 2.08 amps. It should be still moving around as the processor is doing stuff, or even the chipset's doing things. So we're gonna have to open this thing up. Always start with a CMOS reset. So let's get the bottom open. All right, and the bottom is open. So let's start with let me unplug the main battery here. And we're gonna unplug the CMOS battery and see if we can do a CMOS reset. The CMOS reset, what you're trying to do is you're trying to rewrite the EC chip, the startup chip, the Super IO. And so by depleting all the power in the system, and we're gonna short out the real-time clock connector here with the CMOS battery unplugged. And what that should do when we plug it back in, it should rewrite the EC chip from the BIOS. So I'm just gonna, with the battery unplugged still, the CMOS battery unplugged still, I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the power. It should power on by itself. See if we get anything different. 0.78, 0.81, 0.56. See, this all looks normal. This part of the startup process looks normal with it jumping around like that. But what we're worried about is if it goes straight up that 2 amps again and just sits there. So 0.83, 0.81, 0.8, 0.81. Okay, well it's staying at a number, but it's not that 208. And I do have the battery unplugged, so I bet it was charging the battery for that extra amps that we're missing. If I plug the battery back in, I bet it will jump up to 2 amps. Let's see. Plugged in the battery. So it's hanging. Oh, there we go, there it is. So now it went back up to that, and that's because the battery's plugged in. So I'm gonna unplug the battery and see if it drops back down. The battery's unplugged now. So now it's running only off the charger, no battery. .82. Okay, so 0.69. That's the lid's closed. We open the lid. So the lid sensor is working. So it can tell that we're opening and closing that. Okay. Let's go ahead and probe around and see if we see anything interesting. This may end up being like a BIOS or something like that. But we're gonna start out by just probing around to see if we see anything that's shorted. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the board out. That way we can actually inspect it. All right, and the board is out. So let's go ahead and set this aside and take a look. I'll go ahead and pull this heatsink off too. See if we got RAM in here. I do. All right, let's go ahead and plug it in without anything attached. That way we can eliminate there being an issue with one of the parts that are connected to it. So we have the DC jack attached. Everything else is not attached to it. So we're gonna look at the amps again. Take a look right here. 0.4. CPU is getting warm. I'll go ahead and just put a thermal pad on here. 0.5, 0.5. Now it's getting hot. Okay, we're getting a blink code now. I don't know if you just saw that, but it was blinking right here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to put the heatsink back on so we don't have to worry about it overheating. Now let's see if we can figure out what that blink code is. It might be registering that I don't have any RAM in there because I just took out the RAM. And that's good. Whenever you have if you take out the memory and it's showing that the memory has been removed, that means that at least it knows what's going on. It's always something good to test. So let's go ahead and check that. We're going to plug that back in. Check for the amps. Just hang it at 0.4, 0.2, I mean 0.42. Okay, so we got a blink code. 1, 2, orange. 1, 2, 3. So it's a 2, 3, which is actually memory. Let's see if we can pull that up. Okay, so a 2, 3 is no memory installed. So let's go ahead and install memory and see if the code changes. See if we get a different light code. Plug it in again. 0.58, 0.6, 0.43, 0.61. See, we're just reading the amps. That's what we're just trying to figure out what the laptop's actually trying to do. 0.66. All right, so let's see if we're getting a light code. I don't see anything. Let me plug a keyboard into it real quick. We're going to plug a keyboard into the USB port. See if that powers on. We're not getting that to power up, so the caps lock isn't working. We'll reset it real quick. We have a power light. And it turned off. All right. So it's definitely not posting. Now, why is it not posting? Let's go ahead and do our physical examination. Gonna take out the heatsink and we're gonna take off all these little covers here. That way we can look around and make sure there's nothing burnt or broken, ripped, damaged, anything like that. Okay, let's go to the microscope. All right, so we have, just looking around, what we're trying to find is something that's burnt, cracked, water spill, something discolored. And all this is looking okay so far. There's the power management chip. That seems like it's probably okay, the way that it's can charge the battery. And is sending voltage to the CPU and stuff like that, because the CPU is getting warm, so I'm not worried about the power management chip. LCD connector looks okay. And there's no story with this. This just says that there's an issue. It says it won't power on, but it's not saying why. Like, did they change something out, or did it just happen one day? So I don't see anything on this side. We're going to go ahead and flip it over, and we'll just do our finish looking around. That looks fine. That looks fine. Looks like this version doesn't have a chip there. Another chip's missing, but that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the USB-C controller chip. So that's what handles the information and the charging for the USB-C. All right. Let's look around some more. And I don't see anything. Everything looks good. You know, one thing we didn't try is actually plugging in through the USB-C, because we can actually charge it through that. So let's try that. See if it powers on any differently through USB-C. Okay, let's see. This is the USB-C charging port instead. So 0.56, 0.4, 0.64, 0.66, 72, 0.56. It's moving around still, but let's see if it settles at that 0.61. Yeah, it looks like it's doing exactly the same thing. Okay, So we'll keep trying to figure out what's going on with this. So one thing is we may be missing a power rail. So we have to figure out if there's missing a power rail somewhere. So the voltages that on this board that we should have a 3.3, we should have a 5 volt, we should have a 1.2, we should have a 1 volt, and those are the main ones that I always look for. Right? And then the main power rail, which would be either the voltage from the charger, which would be 19 to 20 volts, or it'll be battery voltage, which on this battery is a 15 volt battery, because I guess it's a 4 cell. So that means the main power rail could be the battery voltage, which would be like 15 volts or 16, probably somewhere around there. Let's see what we can find. We'll go ahead and plug it back in again. While it's plugged in, I'm going to start looking for these voltages. And what I usually do is I just go to the coils. So here's the coil here, got 0.6 volts. The coil here, got 13.25. So that must be the main power rails, 13.25, which seems lower than the battery, but we got 1.8 volts. We got 0.7 and 3.3. So this one next to it, oh, we got 5. Okay, so we have our 5. All right, so these two here, that's the 3.3 volt rail, that's the 5 volt rail. This says it's 1.8 volts, which I'm not sure what that is for. This one's the 13.25, that's gonna be the main power rail and the battery. This one was 0.6, which seems a little low. This is an AMD board, so it doesn't even have like an Intel chip set, so I need to figure out what the voltages are in there. I bet that's what that 1.8 is, because I'm used to working on Intel boards. But your memory should actually be 1.2 volts. So 0.6, so let's see what the CPU is doing. CPU has 1.1 volts. 1.1. 1.8. Let's go ahead and put the memory in there and see what changes. Okay, this 1.8 volts. It's interesting because let me try a different RAM slot and see if it actually pulls current differently, because it seems to be doing a little something different than a second ago. Because we got more than 1 amp being pulled right now. 1.25. Whoa. I think it's posting. Let me put the heatsink back on. Could it just have a bad memory slot? Let's look at this keyboard back up again. The keyboard's hooked up. Plug it back in. Power light's staying on. Oh, it turned off again. 0.61. Now we're back to 0.61 again. Interesting. Is there something wrong with the board if I flex it? Interesting. Well, I thought it was acting a little different. It may have just been because I didn't have a heatsink on it. It was getting hot. All right, so I'm actually gonna do a BIOS on this. I'm not 100% sure what's causing that, and since all the voltage rails are present, then it leads me to believe that there's something going on with its startup process. So let's see if we can identify the BIOS chip. So there's a WinBond right there, which is a BIOS chip of some sort. This is a WinBond 25Q128. So that would be big enough for a BIOS. Let's see if there's any other ones on here. Yeah, that's the only one I see. So that's the one we're going to go ahead and read. Let's go ahead and read the data off of that. So we're taking my chip reader, and this is a 5x6 chip. This is a 5x6 pin connector. The way it works is you press it down, the pins come out. So I'm going to line up pin 1, with pin 1 with the dot on there. Pin 1's on this corner. And let's pull up the chip reader. Okay, so what we're doing here, we want to make sure this chip number matches. We saw it as a 25Q128JW. So when I put this on here, I'm going to have it detect it. So pin 1, put it on here. We're going to press down. Let's say auto, say detect, and it was a WQ128JW. It's a S0 IC. It's gonna be this one right here. Okay, select, let's say read. Let's go ahead and verify. Always make sure to verify. All right, so let me save. I always save a copy of the customer's original. Okay, so we saved a copy of their original. So now we need to get a new BIOS. We'll create a new BIOS. On this, it's an AMD, so we should be able to just download it from Dell and put it straight in there. 625. So this is an Inspiron 5625. We're gonna go to downloads, drivers. We're gonna choose BIOS. And then right here, we're gonna do the down arrow, and then we're gonna choose other formats. And then we're gonna choose this format right here. Download that, that's a recovery file. And then I always like to rename it, so I'm gonna copy this naming scheme here. And we'll rename it. I'm gonna copy that over to my extractor tool. All right, so we have it in here in this folder. And so I have a command shell prompt that I run. Okay, we're gonna run, it's this one. Okay, so the extraction is done. So now we'll have an actual folder that's named the same thing. So here's the folder. Here is our BIOS file here. It actually should be intact. All right, so here's the file we just downloaded. We had just extracted from the Dell BIOS. And here's their original. So that the startings look the same. We can actually compare these. Let's go ahead and compare them. Compare files. Yes. There's a bunch that's different, which is expected. So the startings are the same, but this section here is different. And all this section down here. So we're gonna go ahead and write this new extracted BIOS. The way that I just did this only works on AMD boards. On Intel, you have to do something a little different. So anyways, we're gonna take this file that we just extracted, and we're gonna load it up in here into our chip reader. Okay, we're gonna load it up in there, 16 megs. So now we'll put this back on here and write it back to this chip. Program, I'll speed this up. Okay, now it's actually programming the chip before it was erasing it. And now it's gonna verify it. Perfect, and then I always like to verify it one extra time. Okay, there you go. It's all written, so this will at least eliminate if it's a BIOS issue or not. Just gonna install this board real quick and then we can test it. Okay, I have the motherboard installed. Let's go ahead and give it a go. Got the fan spinning. This first startup process with a new BIOS usually takes a little bit of time. This is actually interesting. It's spinning up the fan and then shutting it off, spinning up the fan, shutting it off. Kind of in a loop. Okay, now the fan's cranking. And what do we have? What do you see here? We got a screen. And it says enter the service tag. So it looks like it was just a corrupted BIOS. Let me go ahead and get the service tag entered. Okay, we're in the BIOS. Let me go ahead and connect the battery. Battery's connected. Let me turn it off. And reset it and turn it back on. Okay. So because I just wrote the BIOS on here, it's actually in engineering mode, or developer mode. We got to disable that. So in this system, you'll have to hit FNX to disable it. This will put it in regular mode. There we go. We out of it? Yep. Okay. Let me go ahead and hook up this hard drive real quick, saying there's no hard drive installed. So on this one, it was an AMD, and so the process that I just did only works on AMDs. Okay, BitLocker key. So it's trying to boot off the drive. They can't do it because the key was actually stored in the BIOS. Now the BIOS got wiped, so we're gonna have to do BitLocker recovery to get them, but it's trying to boot, so but it just needs a new BIOS written to it. And one question that I get a lot is why would the BIOS get corrupted? And unfortunately, most of the time it's because Microsoft is pushing out BIOS updates. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these corrupted BIOSes. I actually have another one right here that I'm about to fix. So that's what I'm guessing, because now it just becomes a Windows update. So let me know what you think. But now the laptop's working. Everything's up and running. I'll go ahead and finish assembling this and get it back to our customer. Thanks for watching.
I saved another laptop!